So Vishnupriya, if you can let us know whenever we have to go live, start, you let us know and we'll start.
I think Chaitanya, we are live already.
Yeah, we are live, but when we should formally start off once we have a certain number of people maybe. So we'll give it another 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 11:06, so in 2 minutes we'll start.
Sure.
Just give everybody time to log in.
Dilip? Dilip? You got the eyebrow? I sent it to her.
All right, I think we're good to go. Should we start?
Yes, let's start.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone, welcome to Talk to Legends series, an initiative by JB Chemicals. I'm your host, Chaitanya Rathi. Today, it is the first of the talks of this series that we have come up with, and we plan to do this on a regular basis. Today, we have a legend amongst us, Dr. Ashok Kripalani, but I will come to that later. Firstly, thank you to each one of you for sparing your time on a Sunday morning. You know, Sunday is our family time, and sparing your time on a Sunday morning to join us for this lovely series, this chat show, if we may call it. And to start this session, may I request Mr. Vikas Khare, sales head of two of the divisions at JB Chemicals, to please give the welcome note.
Thank you, Chaitanya. Good morning to all. Respected doctors, family members, colleagues, and my dear friends. I welcome you all for this unique initiative developed by Unique or JB Chemicals, wherein we shall be trying to learn and unveil a different persona of those few selected souls, people whom we admire as legend in our medical field. This is our way to pay tribute and gratitude from the house of JB Chemicals to all these wonderful human beings who have given their lives to mankind and definitely brought lives to the lives of millions of patients across globe. Friends, doctors have been respected and are placed next to God. But some doctors fall within the same category as of God. Our today's legend definitely is one of them. Thousands and millions of patients across globe have been blessed and treated with the magic hands of Dr. Ashok Kriplani. And he needs no introduction by so far. Well, we are well versed with his professional vibes, his lucid talks, his charismatic personality as a doctor. But today, we are definitely very fortunate to learn about his personal aspect of his wonderful journey so far. So I will not waste any more time, and I will request Mr. Chaitanya to help us unveil more about Dr. Kriplani. Sir, we are blessed to have you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khare. That's right. As he said, that it's now time to unveil or introduce our legend for the day. Someone has rightly said that good players win races, great ones break records, but legends change the game. And that is exactly someone that we have today with us this morning, a legend who's changed the game in nephrology. And let's take a look at his introduction and his journey so far, right from childhood. He wears a lot of caps. He has a lot of caps. Firstly, he's an MD from MNAMS, Nephro, and a Professor Emeritus and head at the Department of Nephrology, Bombay Hospital Institute of Medical Sciences. He is an author, an orator, a teacher, an influencer, a guide, leader, music and movie lover, examiner, inspector on the National Board of Examinations, kidney transplant specialist, I'm sure each one of you knows that, and a hypertension specialist. These are a very few of the caps that he wears, with over 4 decades of experience in nephrology practice and teaching, right? So we have, that's why we're calling him the legend, 4 decades, right? He's performed over 2,000 kidney transplants. He's the former professor and HOD of nephrology department, Grant Medical College, JJ Hospital, former president of the Indian Society of Nephrology, former president of Indian Society of Organ Transplantation, former president of Hypertension Society, and the university teacher since 1977. He runs 2 specialty hypertension clinics in Mumbai and multiple publications and chapters in medical and nephrology textbooks. We have people joining in from all over the world. So people who just joined in, once again, welcome to Talk to Legends. We are going to be talking to Dr. Ashok Kriplani. Yes, born in 1947, just before the independence in Hyderabad in Sindh. And we'd love to know his journey from Sindh to Mumbai, which we will come to shortly. His associations are with the Association of Physicians of India, Indian Society of Nephrology, National Academy of Medical Sciences, International Society of Nephrology, Governing Council of Asian Society of Transplantation, Diabetic Association of India, Indian Medical Association, Indian Society of Organ Transplant. And if you go back to his early education days, this is what we have on your screen. He's an MBBS from now, passed out in November 69 from Bombay University, MCPS November 69, College of Physicians and Surgeons Bombay, DGP July 1971, again from College of Physicians and Surgeons Mumbai, MD General Medicine in November 1973, Bombay University, and MNAMS Nephro in October 1980. National Board of Examinations, New Delhi, with 2 years research and training experience at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, New York, USA, right? And his earlier education milestones you can see on your screen. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to talk to our legend. Let's get our legend on the screen. Good morning, Dr. Ashok Kriplani. Thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us for the first of the series of Talk to Legends. How are you feeling, sir?
I'm feeling a little humbled, if you may ask. I never thought that people consider me a legend, because a legend is always in the past. I hope I'm still in the present. But anyway, I am very honored that JB Chemicals has started this series, and I'm the first one. At least somebody thinks I'm a great man, so I'm very humbled and honored to accept that whatever you ask me today, it will come straight from the heart. It will be the truth and not anything hidden from you. Sometimes there may be even negative things which I won't hesitate to tell you. So go ahead, put your
Absolutely.
question, and at the end of it, let the listeners decide whether I am a legend or not.
No. So it is the listeners who've told us that you're already a legend, and we want him to be the start of the series of Talk to Legend. So, of course, sir, each one of us admires you and is very sure that you are a legend for all of us. So, for all our viewers also, if you have, so today we're going to discuss the non-medical side of Dr. Kilpani, and we're not really going to go too much into medical or the medical experience that he has. We will touch on that, but more who's the person behind the medical or the doctor or the legend that we all know. So if you have any questions for him, please go to the Q&A box and type in your questions. We will take a few questions at the end of the session if time permits. So in case you have any questions for him, please go and feel free to write that down. So, sir, as I said, your journey from Sindh to Mumbai, the early days, we'd love to know what happened. When did you move to India? Where did you move? And your early days.
So let me say that I was born to a family of the Kripalanis who were businessmen, but my father branched away and became one of the most popular doctors of Hyderabad, Sindh. And he was into practice for about 3 years when the terrible partition of India took place. I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine, as the song goes. And it was raining heavily, and I was born prematurely in the 7.5 months of my mother's pregnancy. I was only 4 pounds in weight and premature, and they put me in cotton. I was delivered by a Dai who subsequently became a doctor in Mumbai and continued to love me till she passed away at the ripe age of 85. But he was a wonderful human being. There were no incubators, no ventilators. Delivery was at home. My father rushed at 4 a.m. in a buggy. There were no cars, and they brought her, and she delivered me. And I'm here thanks to her. So my first homage to her and my parents and my loving grandparents who gently, through the turmoil of partition, you called it independence, I call it partition, because I was born in independent India, in undivided India. And so I'm by birth an Indian citizen, and we were refugees in our own country. But with all the trials and tribulations, the parents and grandparents brought me to Mumbai, and I was brought up in a very loving joint family. So I was not only brought up by my parents, but my uncles and aunts, there were 5 of them, and they were virtually, even today, they would be hurt if I called them uncle and aunt. I was the eldest grandson and the first grandson, and so they brought me up as their own brother. So they have been responsible for my care right through, besides my parents. This was a very bad time. We brought to Bombay and lived in a house, first in a chawl, and with a room which was 20 by 15 with a chawl type of outside toilets and only a small space on one corner to have a bath, and one with a little curtain, and one other side a small kitchen, and 14 people, including myself, were housed there. But soon father resumed his practice in all his loving patients, who also ran away from Hyderabad. Since by the year, he came here in 47, by the year 54, he was back on his feet, and thereafter grew to be a giant in family practice. He put me through the best school in Mumbai, the Cathedral School. That was not arguably, it was the best school. Today you may say it's arguably the best school. The Cathedral School was run by the Anglo-Scottish Society, and Mr. Gunnery, who was president or principal of the school, was a wonderful human being who my grandfather conned into accepting. He told my grandfather that, oh, well, we only take sons of judges and transferred army people and ambassadors, etc. And he said, what do you do? He said, Dad, I'm doing the stock market. So he said, oh, we also take doctors. So the minute he said doctors, my grandfather jumped on him and said, look, he's not my son, he's my grandson, he's son of a doctor. And Mr. Gunnery, man of his word, gave me a place. I went through school life a little disadvantaged. I was always 32nd out of 34 in the class, from first to fifth or sixth standard. Fifth standard, the subjects changed. All the art and PT and drawing and crafts all disappeared, but the languages persisted. So I went to 16 and 17. And then in the ninth standard, all that languages, everything disappeared, and I went to first. And I never stopped being first after that, because they were all science subjects, which were science and maths were to my liking. During that period, I saw a very serious problem develop in my one cousin. And I'm going to connect it to why something that you left out of my biodata. We have in our Sindhis a disease called thalassemia. And one of my cousins developed thalassemia. There was no cure in those days. It was just multiple transfusions. It's a horrible disease. It still exists. You can prevent it. I won't go into details. But thalassemia had a severe impact on me. I would take his mother and I would accompany them in the ninth standard for his transfusions. And really that was the starting point that I should become a doctor. And I always wanted to do something for thalassemia, which I will tell you later what I did for thalassemia. So he died at the age of 6 or 7, but they were very bad years. But otherwise, my progress from mediocrity to excellence was gradual. I had around me people from families that are royalty. Kamal Murarka is my classmate. And Mr. Taparia, who's chairman of Bombay Hospital today, was sitting next to me. So I was surrounded by elite. And I was a small fry. I mean, they would discuss, I went to, where did you go for your holidays? I went to Switzerland. I said, oh, look at this pen. I have a Stedler. I have a Wilson. And I went to Matharan once in a while. But that low feeling didn't bother me. And sooner or later, I caught up. And then with my academic excellence, I beat them all. And I tell you one thing, the best friends you have in life are the ones who sit next to you by accident. They sat next to me just by accident. We were thrown into the same class just by accident. Till today, I have a friend who sat with me in kindergarten. He lives in Colaba and we're still in contact. And these friends are the ones who don't have any reason to be your friend. Later on in life, you have patients who have reason to be your friend. But that really made a big difference. And I got out of it. You know, when I was born, they named me Ashok. The word Ashok means Ashok, no shok, no unhappiness. So even a phase of happiness, I learned through my life that there would be no, I took it in my stride, although I did have to start with a fair amount of inferiority complex. I would go by bus, they would come by Mercedes-Benz. But today, it's all good, and they never made me feel small. That was their greatness. Coming to that period of school life, it was a wonderful school. I tell you, I mean, even today, everybody strives to be in that school. And at the end of school, my father strangely said, don't be a doctor, go into engineering. And we had the opportunity to go to IIT. So he forced me to sit for the IIT exam. And I came 56th in all India. And I got a seat in chemical engineering, which he asked me to take. But I refused to go for the interview. I said, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be a doctor. That thalassemia episode, and of course, everybody said, you will be a doctor. Why? He said, you have terrible handwriting. Look at your handwriting. From the first day, my teachers would say, you will be a doctor. Look at the way you write. I could never write in a square. My handwriting is so big, you'd be shocked. And I passed it on in my genes to my son, who is also exactly like that. And he's also a nephrologist. So that's a great pleasure for me. But people knew that I would be a doctor. And my father said, don't go. Anyway, I overruled that and instead went to St. Xavier's College, a great college. People told me, go to Jain, Apna College, Sindhi College. You will enjoy there. I said, nothing doing. The girls are great in St. Xavier's. It's good fun, social life, and great teaching. By the time I finished and went into what was then called InterScience, I came 5th in the university. And the medical college interviews were taken in a panel where all the 4 deans of the colleges sat together. So the first 50 or 60 will always go to KEM, that's the GS Medical College. So when I was 5th in the interview, the dean of JJ was actually snoozing. And so they said, the KEM dean took my interview and said, which college? So I said, the Grant Medical. So he shook the GMC dean and woke him up. He said, "Aapka student." So he said, "Why are you coming to GMC? You're number 5. Like, kya time hai? Number 5 coming to GMC. Why?" I mean, he was surprised. So I said, because my father went to GMC. And I tell you, I never regretted that. GMC is a college that made me a man. You know, they throw you to the wolves. They don't teach you. Go and read the books. Go and have fun. Go have August melodies, dancing, fooling around with girls, running into police with nonsense alcohol, all sorts of things. But you come out polished like a great doctor because you learn to stand on your own feet. And that was throughout those 5 years in medical college. It was the best period of my life. And I often pray, God, if you again have to make me a doctor in the next life, maybe I don't want to be, but if you have to, then only make me a teacher in Grant Medical College. I don't want to go anywhere else. That's my wish for the next birth, if any, God willing, God knows. So otherwise, I would not like to be a practicing doctor in today's atmosphere. But I don't want to go into that. I want to give you the positive side. Grant Medical was a boon. I made great friends. I was taught, I entered Grant Medical in 1965 and I left in 1990. No, I wasn't a student. I went in as an MBBS, then passed my MD, then went for 3 years, 1 year to Jaslok Hospital to learn nephrology, and then to America for 2 years for further nephrology training. And the day I came back in 77, I went from the airport to Grant Medical, appeared for an interview, and got in. And from 77 to 90, at a salary of 150 rupees, I was an honorary professor of medicine in medicine and nephrology, and then exclusively in nephrology as HOD. That's where I first started my transplants. I did 20 transplants in Grant Medical and JJ Hospital in those 8 years when I was HOD of nephrology. And it gave me great confidence because we did these on poor people who had no money. And it was embarrassing. I would often go to father and say, "Dad, I need money for petrol." And he would, give it to me. He was so loving. He didn't ever bother, but it was shameful, and you're 30 plus and you say, "I need money for petrol." It's embarrassing. But I never wanted to leave the teaching profession. And I tried to get extra attachments. And that was a period when nobody took me. Between 77 and 84, the only hospital that took me at the 1979 was Harkishan Das Hospital, because a very benign Gujarati gentleman, Mr. Balakrishna Mehta, he recognized talent. Normally that hospital advertised only in Gujarati and only to Gujarati. I stood against 5 other Gujarati nephrologists and beat them. And Mr. Balakrishna Mehta took me. But it didn't do anything to my practice. And I tell you why I say this. Because in this country and in this world, merit counts for nothing. Merit counts for nothing. Without large dollops of luck and without great friends and godfathers, you don't get anywhere. And I'd like to here digress and tell you the people who made me nephrologist. And these were the doctors who guided me. I will start with Dr. V.R. Joshi, who is the doyen of Hinduja Hospital. He used to do every kidney biopsy in that hospital. And he would take me along when I worked with him to teach how to do biopsy. And it's not an easy procedure. It's a dangerous procedure. It's a difficult procedure. And what happened was one day, after 3 tries, we couldn't get the piece out. And he said, "Let's go." I said, "Sir, you let me try." And sure enough, I put the needle in with one shot, I got it. Now that's luck. He was brilliant. I hope, I wish he were listening to me. But if this is on YouTube, I'll ask him to listen in. He said, Ashok, from today, that is 1971. He said, from today, you do every biopsy in this hospital. And from that day, right up to 1990, when I finally left that hospital, every biopsy was done by me. And that's how I was initiated into nephrology. He made me do a thesis on it. I shifted then when Dr. Mani, Doyen of nephrology in India, first set up his nephrology department in Jaslok. And I just heard about it. You would be surprised. There was no mention of nephrology in our MBBS training. No lectures, nothing. Dr. B.N. Lula, who was also my friend, philosopher and guide, and said, Ashok, you're doing so many biopsies, go and meet Mani. He's a perfect person for you, he'll teach you. So when I finished my MD, I shifted to him for 1 year, and he trained me in nephrology. And from there, I took a jump and went to USA. And I would say that the US hospital, you know the name Mount Sinai is the Jewish monument. It's a worship place. And there are Mount Sinai hospitals all across New York, all across the states. But this Mount Sinai hospital is a pioneering hospital. The first dialysis machine that was made in Holland was brought by the Jewish doctors into Mount Sinai Hospital. And I had the pleasure of seeing that in Mount Sinai Hospital when I worked there. And I tell you, it was an exclusive Jewish hospital with multiple Nobel Prize winners walking around. They were brilliant people. But more than that, the Jews are a different race. You know, the Old Testament says that the Jews are God's chosen race. And I tell you, there's a lot of meaning in that. Their attitude to anything is tough. They made me tough as nails. You know, the first 6 months, they drove me mad, right? Asking me questions, go and do this, bring this, why are you saying this? I almost gave up and said, I can't deal with these guys. And then one day at Thanksgiving, the boss's wife brought me aside and said, Ashok, they called us for a Thanksgiving dinner. You know, it's a very big, so she says, Ashok, how are you doing? So I said, you know, I'm really flustered. She said, don't worry. Marvin Levitt is the boss's name. So Marvin Levitt likes you very much. Don't get pushed by him. These guys are like that. They'll push you in the corner and make you tough as nails. And sure enough, those 2 years, they made a huge difference. They made such a difference that I tell each of my students that if you want to be a full rounded nephrologist or rounded doctor, go abroad, get a degree called BTA. BTA means what? Been to America. Been to America means Canada is also America. America is also New Zealand is the UK. Go abroad. We don't, you know, we are sissies here. The first day I went to my boss, I said, good morning, sir. He said, look, Ashok, he's called Ashok. Ashok, don't call me sir until I become Sir Marvin Levitt. Then you can call me. You can call me Dr. Levitt. You can call me Marvin. You can call me Marv. I never got beyond Dr. Levitt. But I saw a third-year medical student walk in with his sandwich and cup of coffee at a lunch conference and say, hi, Marv, and then put his feet up on the table and yap as if, you know, they were buddies, a 35-year-old boy. So I tell you, the culture is different. The culture shock is different. But if you've not seen it, you've missed something. And in your training, you become tough as nails. And all my students will tell you, I'm sure a lot of them are listening, they will all tell you that this is what I brought back maximum from America. And then when I came back from America, I had 7 years before I got into Bombay Hospital. Harkishan Das Hospital was nice to me, but the people around were not so nice. I got very less work. Dr. Halankar was a great man. He took me, he gave me a lot of his work, but still it was not enough. It was not enough to pay for the petrol because I was still going to JJ. But the minute I went to in 84 to Bombay Hospital, my graph went up like a rocket. And the rocket had some fuel. I had a great friend behind me, but he only pushed me because he was able to say, this boy is merited. He wouldn't have, Mr. Taparia wouldn't have been able to push me without that fuel that he has merit. The others, for 7 years, I went from hospital to hospital asking, please take me, please take me. No, no, no. Somebody else appointed a Gujarati doctor. Somebody says, we have no money, we don't want dialysis units. Party General Hospital says, we don't want to give free dialysis to parties. If you come here, we have to, there's too much money. There were various excuses. But Bombay Hospital pushed me, and from there on, I took the 20 transplant experience of JJ to Bombay Hospital, and then the graph was like a rocket. The hospital used to do only 100 transplants a month. Today, they do 1,500 to 2,000 transplants a month. And I tell you one more thing. I was really supported by friends all around, but I was also supported by family. You know, we first 79 transplants had to be done at midnight. They were planned transplants, but my family, particularly my wife, she would make, you know, vegetarian hamburgers and food and send it. So we would start the transplant at 8 o'clock in the evening. We would break for a meal in between while the kidney was being washed. Some members would come out and go, and I'm sure Dr. Oza is listening. And I really want to thank Dr. Fatke and his team. And I tell you, it was all about teamwork. A transplant is a surgical thing. It's the Nobel Prize for transplant went to a surgeon, not to a physician. And it was Dr. Fatke and his team. That team remains intact, except those who are no more. Dr. Fatke is no more. All the rest are around. And we really gelled, and that's how we did 2,000 plus transplants when I was active. Now, I've handed over that work to my son who does the transplant. But I must say that without the untiring support of my family, who tolerated this nonsense of going into transplant at 8 o'clock and finishing at 2:30, 3, coming home, next morning working again. And the pitch of transplant picked up tremendously. Why? Because at that time, it was not illegal to do unrelated transplant. We did unrelated transplant. We never acquired organs for anybody. But we did not question why X is giving to Y. Until in 1994, the law came. And the law said you can't do unrelated transplant unless you can prove without doubt that this person is doing it without consideration. It is completely free of money exchange with a free of. So the pace of transplants became less in our unit. But by then, the whole thing had blown up. And today we know that transplant is one of the most beautiful life-saving things that you can see. You see, when you put the kidney and that flush of urine comes flowing out like a fountain of life. And you have no idea, there's 7, 8 people in the operation theater, including myself. And that few minutes of transferring the kidney from the donor to the patient and waiting for that urine to come, it is a fountain of life. And it was only possible because you have a brilliant team. From Dr. Fatke, I learned that if you don't have plan B ready, you will fall flat on your face. One night we had a very difficult case. Now, in view of his age, the others, Dr. Thatte and all, you go, we'll manage, don't worry, you go and sleep. And if we need you, we'll call you. We started at 11:30. And at 4 o'clock, Dr. Thatte said, I need some help. So I said, I'm going to take the car and bring Dr. Fatke from his house. The registrar says, sir, you don't know, he's sleeping in my room. He knew that we are going, that he had the vision and the sight to see that plan B should be ready if things go wrong. One day, he himself accidentally cut one of the organs very badly. And I tell you, there was sweating right throughout the theater, except Dr. Fatke. He said, Ashok, bring the x-rays, we'll do like this. He knew what to do. We had never seen that accident happen. So that I learned from him. Be ready with plan B in your life. not always are you going to be 100% successful. So transplantation went through a lot of changes. I became president of Transplant Society. I became president of Nephrology Society. I then decided that if my son, whom I tried my best to discourage from becoming a doctor, but he wouldn't listen. In fact, we had a fight in the house. And I said, no, it's a very difficult profession. Go for something simpler. He said, no. And we had a fight. Sadly, whatever. I lost. Why? Because my father came to me. He wants to go. You fought with me. You went. Why are you telling him not to go? You go. Let him go. And that's how he became a nephrologist. Sure enough, if you ask him today, he might have some reservations. So I then decided in the last 10 years that I have to phase myself out. You see, under a big banyan tree, small tree don't grow. You have to let the sun shine on the small tree. And therefore, you have to move out. So I engineered another method of moving out. And that was to move into hypertension. And I sent him and one Dr. Hardik Shah, who is like my own son, to Canada to learn transplant. Now, I couldn't go and sit in classrooms and learn it. So they learned it and they came back and taught me. So I played a dirty trick. I told them, now you come back and then you teach me and then you start doing transplant. So both of them do my transplant and my patients go to them. And I shifted into hypertension. Therefore, you saw in my biodata, hypertension. But there was another type of transplant that was always bothering me. And that was bone marrow transplant. And you would be surprised. There's something that's not written in my biodata, which is that I am involved with bone marrow transplant. Now, how am I involved? You see these thalassemics. I saw this thalassemia in my young 6-7-year-old thalassemic cousin, and he died. And I became closely associated with Dr. Sunil Parekh as a friend. He was my teacher. He's my referral for every blood disorder. So he said to me that thalassemia can be cured with bone marrow transplant. So I then got involved in the making of something called the Marrow Donor Registry of India. Now, bone marrow transplant is much more complicated than kidney transplant because you need a perfect match. Short of a twin, the matching of the giver, that is the donor and the recipient, has to be 100%. In kidneys, 50% is enough. You can find people who by choice and chance match you 50%. But you can't find people, if you want to find, you would need 1 in a million chance. If you test 1 million people, you will find 1 person matching you. But if you have 8 billion people, you still have lots of people who can give you. And that's what the world has been doing. There's a marrow donor registries all over the world. And there are millions and millions of people in Europe and Japan and USA who have their Janam Patri, what is tissue typing, given to a laboratory and stored in a computer. And God forbid somebody needs for thalassemia, for leukemia, for genetic disorders, a bone marrow transplant. Your doctor can go on that registry and get the data and compare with his patient. And that registry will make a free of charge search for an unrelated person to be giving you bone marrow. So Dr. Sunil Parekh put it to me. And he said, Ashok, we need money. Now, where would the money come from? So now I tell you a secret. From the word go, I started being a general practitioner. You must have seen a funny degree in my biodata called DGP. What is DGP? Diploma in General Practice. From the day I joined anatomy and physiology in 1965, I would sit with my father and learn general practice. And by the time I had finished my MBBS, I was a full-fledged general practitioner. And I actually appeared for that degree and got a gold medal. And I'm the first general practitioner of Bombay to have become get a degree in general practice. That was the first time a degree was given in general practice. And I got it. And then my father said, oh, now look, you've got 6 months free. I'm going to America. So he took me to Mr. Ajit Kerkar. Mr. Ajit Kerkar was managing director of the Taj Mahal Hotel, the Indian Hotels company. And he said, Mr. Kerkar, I'm going to America. My brother lives there, and I want him to help me. He'll look after the practice. So Mr. Kerkar put his glasses like that and looked at me and said, hey, this little boy. You know, I was skinny and frail before I went to America. Now I'm fat. And I was very timid and shy until the Jews got on to me. So he looked at me and said, Lakshman was my father. He said, Lakshman, are you sure this boy can handle all the work of the Taj? My father used to spend 4 hours in the Taj. So in those 6 months, besides looking after father's clinic for 6 months, I also looked after Taj Hotel. And sure enough, subsequently, when I came back from America, and I don't know why I came back, I'll tell you. But Mr. Kerkar said to my dad, when I came back, I had no other work. From 9 to 2, I was JJ Hospital. This is honorary, 150 rupees a month. To make extra money, I helped my father because no other hospital was taking me. And I helped in the Taj. And then one day when I told Mr. Kerkar that now I've got good practice, I'm not helping in the Taj, he said, what rubbish I come? You think I'll let you go or what? So I continued to be medical director of Indian Hotels. It's another hat which you don't see on that biodata. And I'm still medical director of Indian Hotels. I have a huge team. And that is why I was able to reach Mr. Ratan Tata. By the time marrow donor registry materialized in 2008, Mr. Kerkar had retired, but he continued to be my godfather. And then I got another godfather, a terrific godfather, Mr. Krishna Kumar, who succeeded. When Mr. Kerkar left, he left in little bitterness. I went and asked him that, sir, you think we are your loyalists, we'll also be thrown out. He said, no. You don't know Mr. Krishna Kumar. He man knows talent. He'll never let you go. And he'll never let me go. I'm still there. Of course, I've got a huge team. I don't do general practice. I do just admin for them. But I have a huge team supported. And that's when I learned that you can do as much as you like. One of the things that I've learned is multitasking. At the same time, I look after marrow donor registry. I look after the Indian Hotels healthcare system. They ask me if somebody has got blood pressure, what shall we do? Somebody has got blindness, this, that. I don't do real general practice, but I started life as a general practitioner. And because of that, I got associated with the Indian Hotels, and I was able to reach in 2008 Mr. Ratan Tata through Mr. Krishna Kumar. And Mr. Krishna Kumar got me from the Tatas more than 20 crores. And I'm the treasurer of that marrow donor registry. And we've done till today 14 transplants. We have done 1 transplant during the COVID period and bone marrow transplant. Now we don't do the transplant. We only bring the donor and supply it to the transplanting team. The one we did recently was in Surat. And the bone marrow, it was in Ahmedabad. The material was taken from here, from the donor, and the donor doesn't know who received it. Even till today, the donor doesn't know who received it. After 1 year, we will be allowed to tell the person who received it that this is your donor. So there is no interaction, no money, but the marrow donor registry has a peculiar history, and it was only from the Tatas, supported by the House of Rahejas. The Rahejas gave us a place in Raheja Hospital, and supported by the Tata Hospital. The Tata Memorial Hospital gave us the know-how, the brains, and that's where a lot of the transplants are done. And once again, I say that over these years, all I learned was to make a team. And that is where the success lies. No man is an island, you can't do it alone. In my own office, I have 27 staff members. You have to be a team. You cannot work alone and say, oh, I did it my way. No. I did it my way, yeah. But I did it with godfathers. I did it with luck. I did it with friends. And I did it by multitasking. I did so many different things at the same time. A lot of people laugh at me. Hey, you are a GP. They didn't take me in the MCI. They said, no. His biodata shows that he is a medical director. I don't care who goes to MCI. I would have loved to go. I sent my biodata. So they rejected on that you are a general practitioner. You go to it. So I'll hell with them. I don't care. I enjoyed being part of teaching. And again, I tell you, my entire life, I have wanted to be a teacher, although I am a practicing clinical physician. And today, when we are in lockdown, I'd like to tell you what I'm doing in lockdown. See, I put my family before everybody else, naturally. I love my son, my daughter-in-law, the orthodontist. My wife, very able, supporting housewife, grandchildren. Now everybody says to me, you're 73 years old, you cannot go out of the house. But is that really possible? I can't forget my extended family. My extended family are my 27 staff members. I run a laboratory. I have drivers. I have social workers. I have dietitians. It's a huge establishment. And when I found myself alone, if I didn't go to the bank and make the payments for their salaries, for the last 5 months, I've been paying the salaries. In the first 2 months, I didn't have anybody coming. I went alone to the bank. So I started by going to the banks. But then the phone calls from patients. So my second extended family is my dialysis unit in Bombay. All those patients and all the staff looking for what shall we do? There was chaos, misery during this lockdown. We were swamped with phones. I had to buy 2 phones. I now have 2 phones. One for exclusively for internet and WhatsApp because it was continuously coming. And I have one for telephony. So I listen on when I open the internet. I have more than 5,000 to 6,000 patients on my computer and their records. Now, when somebody phones me, I have nothing at home. It's all locked up in my office. So I go every day from the first day till today. And our family knows that this is risky, is dangerous. I might bring home COVID, but they accept because they know that I have an extended family. My patients, my staff, my dialysis unit staff were getting COVID off and on. My patients getting COVID. So many have died. More than, I think 15 or 20 have died. The death amongst CKD patients, chronic renal failure patients, have 10 to 30% death rate. And transplant patients, I have more than 2,000 transplant patients following with me. Not all which I transplanted, but others. They all phone, what shall we do? I can't leave them high and dry and say, sorry, I don't have your record, go to somebody. What can they do? As I said, this general practice, which I learned, benefited most in CKD and in transplant. Because general practice is what it is when you look after the transplant patient or the dialysis patient. So I had tremendous benefit. If the fellow can't pass stool, he will phone me. I can't tell him, no, who are you? And I have to answer those phones. And I want to answer them accurately, so I have to have access to the computer. So I learned during this period how to do banking, how to go through the computers. Of course, 6 or 7 locally staying and even far off staying staff members risk their lives. I paid for their taxis. They come every day, clean up the place. I have Mr. Ivor sitting across the table from me who would, tell me exactly what, show me on the screen. I'm very computer. I cannot switch on a computer. This also I can't do actually. That's the truth. I've had teachers teach me 10 times and I forget all the commands and I can't remember them. It's not possible. Because I have so many other things on my head. So how can I remember? So I learned how to switch on computers in the absence of people, how to use the, the arrow and what to start and what to switch off. I use the bank. I go every day and say, "Sab, aapka KYC taiyar nahi hai." They freeze my accounts. So I have to go to the bank. So I learned how to do banking and there was no money, there's no income. Absolutely. I shut the office except telemedicine, which is little bit, and of course, what is fixed income. And so I didn't draw money, I had to draw cash. So that's what the COVID taught me. But I don't let go of my team because my team is priority. Without them, was it transplant, was it dialysis, was it my office, my laboratory, my hypertension clinic, it is all the team that supports. But I must again say that there have been difficult times. I have been sued 3 times. And people for whatever their reason, God forgive them, take you to courts. I've had to go to Supreme Court. And I would like to mention two godfathers or three, two godfathers and one godbrother, who have stood by me like rocks. One was Mr. Ramjeshmani. He was my great buddy. He was my father's great buddy. But he knew me. I sat in his lap. And many times, given him a hard time. Gentleman, say, uncle, what a lovely friend, Schaefer you got. Can I have it? Yeah, take it. A great heart. Those who knew him well, Ram was really Ram. But he was often maligned. He went on to the ripe age of 94 or 95. He died in Delhi. I couldn't go to his funeral. But whenever he was Bombay, I was able to look after him. He was under my care also. For trivial things. He didn't have any major illness that I looked up. His family, his extended family. And then he had a partner, Mr. Jaisinghani, who again, in the absence of Ram, once Ram became politician, he became Delhi. But whatever I needed, the second godfather was that. So in the legal profession, whatever I had trouble with, and they stood by me like rocks. I remember in the Supreme Court one day, I had to, the matter was coming up after lunch, and I had appointed a very senior solicitor who Ram had appointed for me. And he suddenly comes out and says, here, take your brief. I'm on my legs in the other court. Find another lawyer. Oh my God. I started sweating. I said, well, what shall I do? So I said, I rang up my godfather, Ram. Luckily he was in Delhi. He said, oh, so what, Ashok? I'm coming. He knew nothing about the case. He said, I'm coming. I said, okay, uncle, come. It's before lunch. He says, as soon as lunch break is over, give me a ring. And his house was very nearby. As soon as the judge came out after lunch, he says to the court that, look, I will finish this unfinished case. After that, I'm not feeling well. I'm going home. Today I pieced together. Ram asked me, who is the judge? And there were two judges. So he said, who is the chief judge? So I told him that the chief judge is so-and-so. I'm 100% sure that in the break, because Ram knew nothing about the case. And I had no lawyer. So, I'm sure that he was responsible for it. And I've seen him stand by me in such difficult situations. I couldn't get domiciled to go to medical college. He saw that through. It was amazing. Ram was my greatest godfather. Second godfather, whom I mentioned, is Ajit Kerkar, and with him, Mr. Krishna Kumar. Together they have been, but more so Ajit, later Krishna Kumar, because Ajit I knew when I was only 17 years old, and I still look after him. And it's a great pleasure when he phones. I'm thrilled that my godfather is phoned. And I have a young lawyer called Yogesh Naidu, who has also stood by me through all sorts of difficulties and come out winning with my nose above the water. So I would like to acknowledge these people. Also, I would like to acknowledge that what is my skill? My skill is this gift of the gab. Anybody can write a prescription of tetracycline or chloromycin. So what? They're great. But because of this gift of the gab, I'm able to speak well. That comes from the training in cathedral school. Those teachers, half of them were Britishers, Anglo-Indians. They had mastery over English. The slightest mistake and they would bang you in, and they would have debates and we would participate in that. And then I saw medical teachers. Dr. V.R. Joshi was a great teacher, but Dr. R.D. Lele, his boss, was a brilliant lecturer. And the way he lectured, Dr. N.H. Wadia, very fond of me also, the way they lectured, Dr. Saraiya, obstetrics and gynecology, every word got in like jammed in the way they had lectured. And I learned lecturing from them. If you attended Dr. Saraiya's lecture, he would sit in the podium right in the front. I don't know if you've seen the picture what's that? The Dean of Medical College, Sanjay's picture. Munabhai. And that's the anatomy hall. And Saraiya would lecture in the anatomy hall like Munabhai our famous Parsi actor, as the dean lectured. And the hall would be jam-packed. And one day, one Professor Gaitonde, brilliant teacher of pharmacology, decided to push the government to have education in Marathi. So the minister sent out, he didn't send out an edict, but sent out feelers that shall we do medical education in Marathi. So comes Professor Saraiya that morning at 8 o'clock. If you are not in at 7:45, you don't get sitting place, you have to sit in the floor. 600 people can listen to a lecture there if you sit on the floor. And Dr. Saraiya starts his lecture. He is Gujarati, but he starts his lecture, aajcha lecture cha, he's obstetrician. So he says, aajcha lecture cha vishay hai ke bai ko chi gad hati. Mane perineal tear, you see, during delivery, the tear of the perineum and the stitches, he's going to lecture in Marathi. But he had the whole audience in split, and he continued to lecture for 5 minutes in Marathi, just to show his own opposition to that idea. And such brilliant lecturers, when Lele lectured, when O.P. Kapoor lectured, oh God, people from other colleges would come and occupy the seats for our students. And we would fight and tell them, you have no business to come here. Nair or O.P. Kapoor, what a teacher. He's been recognized by the Guinness Book of Records. And from them, I learned how to lecture. From them, I learned how to lecture. And teaching, and this is a message I'd like to give away. The best part of life is to pass on whatever you learn. If I learn it today, I pass it on to you tomorrow. There's no point hanging on to it. And if I treat one patient for kidney failure, then I get blessings of one person. But if I teach my student and he treats in his lifetime 2,000 students, then I have the blessings of 2,000 people. And today I have 63 students who qualified to become nephrologists under my care, including my family, chose to be my students. And these are the people who give me the blessings of so many who have done well and survived. And that is my greatest achievement in life, that I learned and I passed it on to others. And let me say that before I close, I think I didn't give you a chance to talk because you had told me what you wanted me to say, and I said it without your interruption. So let me close before you ask me to close. I will pass on a message to everybody, but let me give you a chance to speak. It's not fair.
No, that's fine. Absolutely fine. You have answered every question that I had for you. So right from your early stages to the pandemic to a message for the youngsters to your inspirations, legends.
No, my message to the youngsters is not over.
That we'll close with that. But one question I had was, people have names in their respective fields and industries. Why are you known as the Dawn of Nephrology?
Well, see, the truth is that I told you, in my MBBS training, there was no nephrology. And nephrology in Bombay was started in KEM Hospital by Dr. Vidya Acharya. And she is known as the mother of nephrology. And she was in a public institution. And she brought up more than 100 students in her institute. In fact, there are only two training centers for the MD or the DM degree. Now, of course, there are new, smaller private hospitals, but in the past, teaching was only in the public hospital. So on one side of the bridge was KEM, that's the Baikala Bridge, and the other side of the Baikala Bridge was the JJ. And she was senior to me. She is respected as the mother of nephrology, not only in Mumbai, but in India. Before that, there were only 5 or 6 big names spread out. Dr. Mani came second to Bombay and then went first and became the biggest in Chennai. And to him, I owe my gratitude for being my teacher. But she, Dr. Mani, Professor Chug, and in the south, Professor Johnny, at the AIIMS teachers, they were the first ones. Till then, there was no nephrology. Nobody knew nephrology. Your kidney patient was sent to urologist. Invariably, kidney patient would land up with urologist, not with nephrologist. And it was Jayaprakash Narayan during the emergency, because he got kidney failure and Dr. Mani looked after him. That's the specialty group. And now all those great people, with the exception of Dr. Mani, who, thank God, is still alive, is 84 or 85 now, most of them are gone. So I have, although almost first generation, I became, at least in Mumbai, today with Dr. Gandhi, who is senior to me, and Dr. Halankar, who is also senior to me. These are the three of us would count as the senior most. Now, I don't know why I'm called the Don, you know. Don to milna bhi bahut mushkil hai, or pakadna bhi bahut mushkil. Maybe they think I'm a gangster. That's why they call me a Don. But anyway, I accept any title or like legend or Don with humility. I'm not really that. I'm an ordinary human being. I grew up climbing on other people's backs. It's not possible. In that period of India, you could not get a gas cylinder without a favor, without a help. No merit counted. You could not get a telephone for 25 years. You couldn't get a Fiat car for 25 years. Everything had to be done with help, with luck, and with somebody backing you up. And I was there. Let me say, if you allow me to give you my final message to all people, starting from the young and then going on to the old. I'm sorry, I would like to, I don't know where that paper is. Anyway, there are some things that you should all know in your career. First of all, don't waste time. That's the most important. My auntie, God bless her, she was my sister actually. I call all of them sisters. But Didi Kiki, we call her, would tell me every day, Ashok, what is the most precious thing in life? I would say money, no. Diamonds, no. Gold, no. Everything she would say no. I would say love, no. Respect, name, fame, nothing. All those will go away, but will come back. The only thing that won't come back is time. And that's when I learned how to do multitasking. So even while I was doing kidney transplant, I was making MDRI. Multitasking, don't waste your time. It won't come back. That's the first message I give. The second is, you are not an island. Work as a team. Don't ignore your team members, and especially those who support you. Who, I mean, you know, I could easily have told my employees who are saying that I'm going to send you half the money. No, I cannot afford to lose these specialized people who give their life for me. My dialysis technician, Madhav, man gives his life for me. He'll do anything if he wants. So don't let go of those who are, you can only work as a team. I saw it in transplant, I saw it in dialysis, I see it in my nephrology department today. All the people have been great support. And I'm working without actually entering the hospital. All my patients, I just have to make a phone call to the hospital, the correct place, and they will get admission, they will get care, they will be looked after by the younger doctors, the nephrologists, especially Hardik and Dilip, and they're on the job without ever telling me that, sir, you are not working. What do you mean by this? I can't do it, but that's because I built up that reputation. And third thing I would tell anyone who is today in practice is, don't be afraid of competition. A lot of people pushed me out of hospitals because they thought I was competition. They knew I was very competent, so so those 7 years I rotted. But when I came into position, I took all the people who supported me. I said, now you become my equal. And today, some of them are even higher than me. And I have to accept that. I have to grow old gracefully and not disgracefully. I've let others also grow. Nobody can be an island and say that, oh, that's it. You know, after me, nothing. The whole department has to grow. It has to be a combined effort. And you have to, everybody copies. You have to copy your elders. I copied Dr. Wadia's lecture. R.D. Bergman copied great English songs. Some of the songs you hear, they are all from Tchaikovsky and from disco and things like that. But he was a great musician. So greatness doesn't mean you don't have to copy. As long as you acknowledge that you copied, that's fair enough. You don't have to be plagiarist. You don't have to copy in writing. But if you copy and then pass on to others, there's nothing wrong with it. And there's no need to push others down and not let them grow. I was president of the Indian Society of Nephrology, and the term is 1 year. And they put a proposal at my time that they should be 2 years. I said no. Let other people become presidents. What the hell are you talking about? And more important, learn to step aside. Learn to not pick on other people's faults. Pick on their goodnesses. I learned that there are a lot of people who push me down. In my interaction with them, I push them up, and they came to love me. And I really, when somebody pushed me down, you get righteous indignation. You want to get ragged and say, I want to hit him. Why did he push me down? But you sit down and introspect and look at it from his point of view. It's not wrong. He's got other things in his domain. So you don't want to be pushed down. I was a young man. I was pushed down. It's like the Bahu and Saas. The Saas bhi kabhi Bahu thi. I was also young. I was pushed down. I feel bad. But that doesn't mean I should push down all just because I was pushed down. Therefore, So that is my lesson to all of you. So, and of course, be a teacher. I always said that if you don't teach, you don't get multiplicity of blessings. You get blessings of your one occupation or whatever. But if you teach, you will be immortal. And so I remember Dr. Wadia, he died 5 years ago, and so many others. Dr. Lele is still alive, Dr. V.R. Joshi is alive, Mr. Kerkar. All these people, they taught me things, they supported me. And I imbibe that and pass it on. In my next life, I want to be a teacher. And in JJ Hospital, where the girls are pretty.
Thank you so much, sir, for all those insights. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. One question I have for you, sir, is do you like surprises?
Well, at this age, surprises are frightening. This COVID was a terrible surprise. And
so let's brighten up your
surprise I would like. But now the heart may not take a severe surprise.
No, so these are some happy surprises that we have for you. So let's brighten up your Sunday, as you said. So a couple of people who've learned from you, who admire you, have sent videos for you, and let's take a look at that. And first one, of course, you know him.
Yeah, hi. Okay.
Good afternoon. My father, Dr. Ashok Kirpalani, has been a mentor, guide, and teacher to many students for medicine and nephrology. And for me, he's, in addition to being my teacher, guide, and philosopher, he's also been my best friend for all these 40 years of my life that I've known him. I've not just learned medicine and nephrology from him, but I've learned a lot of things regarding the practicalities of life and how to deal with difficult situations. I love you, Dad. You're the best. Thank you so much. And I'm today what I am because of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think one of your favorite student, right? And we have one more message.
Hi everyone, and hi Pops, of course. I was so happy when I saw the poster of this event and said a legend speaks about his non-medical life. Truly the word legend is deserved for my father. It literally spoke my mind when I saw this poster, and thank you for organizing this. And thank you, Pops, for being my Pops. I'm truly grateful for that. And I'm so glad I have your genes. And if I can just be 10% of what you are, I would be super ecstatic about myself. At this moment, I'm just super happy and so proud that you're my father. Love you.
Thank you. For our viewers, sorry, I missed out on the name. That was Karishma, Dr. Kirpalani's daughter. That was a message from her. And sir, again, one more final message from, again, let's take a look at this. right. A lot of messages from all your loved ones. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us for this lovely first series. Firstly, your reactions after seeing the videos.
Yeah, I must tell you that I had a big fight with my daughter. Before becoming what she is today, she wanted to become a plastic surgeon. And then I said, nothing doing over my dead body. Nothing doing. Doctor for a plastic surgeon, and she was hell-bent on it. The reason both children wanted to become doctors is because they see the adulation that we get. You know, fruit baskets come and big gifts come and people write nice things. But the life of a doctor, particularly a lady doctor, has to compromise. He has to be married to two different things, profession, and if you want to be really successful lady doctor, you shouldn't marry. And I wanted her to marry and have a great life. She makes apps. She has a huge company of her own. She has a wonderful husband and in-laws in Chennai. She lives there. Her husband, Navneet Ganpati, is into cricket. And I love her life. And I'm so glad that we had this huge ongoing battle for about a year. That she said she wants to be neurosurgeon. Then she said she wants to be plastic surgeon. I said, finally, you be a computer surgeon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. That was an amazing session. A lot of learning for everyone that has joined in. We have a lot of messages coming in from all the doctors saying that it's a nostalgic trip and nice, heartfelt talk. Very inspiring talk. Great nostalgic journey, sir. Excellent talk. He is fit to be called as a legend and a great doctor, says Dr. N. Sudhakar Rao from Hyderabad. So we have people logged in from all over the world listening to you. So thank you very much on behalf of JB Chemicals. Once again, thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you to all the doctors, all the panelists, everybody, all the students, all the interns, young doctors, everybody who's getting inspired by Dr. Ashok Krilpani. And thank you on behalf of JB Chemicals once again. I'm your host Chaitanya Rathi signing off. Thank you and have a great Sunday ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.